Hello, this is a note about comparing grib files, wind forecasts in qtVlm. We can load up to 3 at a time, and I just want to illustrate a couple of the convenient features they have and a couple tricks that might be helpful. So I have 3 files loaded now, and I'll turn them on. Here is one. If you look at the top here, I've got a GFS model loaded, grib slot 1. Slot 2 is ECMWF, and then slot 3 you see here is COAMPS. That's a Navy regional model. And you can always do Command I, or on a PC Control I, and read through what models you have loaded. The other thing too is I'm not discussing it in detail here, how you load these and get them, download them and load them. However, we have an article online which I'm going to reference in the description that tells you that's about what I'm doing now, but it backs up a little bit and shows how to download wind file grib forecasts from Sail Docs, how to select those, how to send an email to get them, put them in a folder, and then load them into the individual slots, and so on. So that article is basically the reference for this, the text reference for this. So here are the 3 models. And then, so the first thing we want to do is a trick. Here's where you do your setup. And these are, you can look at this screen, we want to display the grib. This time slider up here, we don't really need it, but it's helpful as it shows you where you are within the forecast. Like this is the first forecast, that's equivalent to a surface analysis, and then this is the last forecast. And these have all been loaded. When you're doing this comparison, it is handy to have them all be over the same time frame. So like I have here 4 days, and then and every 3 hours, and most of these models have data every 3 hours. So 4 days, 3 hours, and then the best resolution that each one has. And so then here's the setting. This is this icon here for the grib settings. I want to display, well, I'm going to ultimately display all of them at once, but here's the settings we want. Display the grib. Let me shut them off now, and they're in the background confusing us. Display the grib slider, that's this. Show the color LED, we don't need that. Superimpose the arrows from all slots. This is like number 1. This is showing again how this works. Here you're seeing just number 1. Here you're seeing just number 2. Just number 3, and then all of them, and so forth. And that shuts them on and off. So we want to turn on show all of them, arrows on the grid points. Now this means don't interpolate, just put the data where the real, just put a barb where there's a real data point. Usually we want to interpolate and have wind fields, a solid wind field everywhere, but not for this type of comparison. Well, I think generally I would say. So let's turn them on the grib points. Look here, the settings for the grib arrow. That's for what my preferences were. I'm about 3/4 of the way on both of these. We're not using charts. Oftentimes doing weather work, we don't even use a chart. So this doesn't matter here one way or the other. This background, I put none. That's usually best for what we're doing right now. But now we get to the kind of the subtle point. We want these colors, we want to set them as specific colors for a reason that'll be clear in a moment. So on this one, and then here comes the colors. And when you, let's see, how does this work? Colors. There's these different options here. I think when you default, the default is something like this. I think the default would be when you first click one of these. This is for the 3 slots. Slot 1, slot 2, slot 3. And we want wind barbs, right? What's the choice here? Well, I don't know what the choice is, but we want barbs. But this is, we're setting the color of the wind barbs on slot 1, on slot 2, slot 3. And I think when you default, this will come to like this. So what I'm recommending is change this apple to a crayon, and then for this one, use a licorice, this black up here. Then you have to say thank you, and you're done. Then you go to the red one, and for the red one, I'm using Maraschino. That's a red. It's just red. Okay, that's good. And set it and close it, and then you go to green, and this is the more subtle one. We use the fern, like that. Crayons, fern. Okay, so that's how we're setting the 3 colors. I'll show you why in a moment. This doesn't matter because we're not using it. This doesn't matter. The other thing to do is come into the pressure, and again, we're comparing wind, but I'll show you why the pressure is valuable in a moment. And so we're not going to show it for the moment, but you might set this at 2, and this at yellow for the time being. None of these other ones matter. And we'll come back and turn this on in a moment. Okay, so there you go. And so now we have, I can turn on all, well, let me turn this on and then turn them all on here. So they're all on. So now all of a sudden we're doing what we wanted to do, namely with these with all 3 loaded with 3 different colors. We have we can now compare these, and then if you want to, you can step through the forecast. Like you see, we have some agreement. We have pretty good agreement here and so forth. Not very much agreement here, and we can see in a minute why that's true. And then you can also step through this. Either set this say to 6 hours, and then just step through and see. I can go all the way down the forecast. Now you see up here somewhere we have a time when this is like a train here. This is all looking like it all agrees pretty well, but then it's kind of chaos here and so forth. So, but this is a way you can tell what these 3 models are. But now we can actually do, or you could just move it with the slider like this if you care to. Okay, let me go back to here. Let me go back a little bit. Let's say to here. All right, well, then here's 3 points. Now, what you could do is, let's say here's point BB. So I'm going to right-click here and say Mediogram. So this is the trick play that they've got here in the program. So you hit Compare Gribs. Now, you see how beautiful this is. What you're seeing is all 3 of these. Now, remember this point here, that this base time on the mediogram, so this is at this, and it doesn't mark it, so that's why it's probably good if you're going to do a mediogram to drop a mark and then do a mediogram near the mark. Also, you can't do it right at that. You see, you can't, once you drop a mark, you can't go right to it, but you can go, you know, fairly close to it. I don't know how close you can get. Oh, not that close. Okay, there. What's going on here? Right click, mediogram. And then that happens sometimes. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's not a big deal. You just pull that open. And then once you have that, you have compare the gribs. So what I'm doing now is looking at the forecast for the wind speed and direction at this point into the future, from here, from this time to here. If I had this up here, if I went up here like this, you see, to here, and then I click here and let's see, click here and mediogram, like that, and then compare the gribs. Now you see this starting time here is this time, 2053, 2053, and so on. So keep in mind that's what the mediogram does. Then what you can also do when you're looking at this is you could put your cursor, here, just let it sit, and that's going to tell you, you see over here I read that's 180, but if I put it right here, it's like 175.9. And if I want to read the wind speed here, I can just set the cursor there. It's like I think that's called a tooltip, and it just sits there, and that's 29.2 knots. So that's the way you can read that. And then you can do these at different points. You could come over here and do mediogram, compare gribs, and you have this beautiful comparison of the forecasts. And that is the main thing I wanted to show with this. Let's go back. One other subtlety to just mention with the pressures, we can't overlay multiple isobars from different models. And so what we do is look at one at a time. So what we might do is go in here, turn on the pressure, and say close. Now we're there. Where is it? Why isn't it showing? Okay, maybe. Okay, let's do this. Let me show just one of these. Now I'm going to come in here, and we're black. Black would be the first one, which is the GFS, here and show that. Oh, I didn't get it turned on. Okay, up. I double clicked. Okay, there it's on. Okay, close. So now we're seeing the isobars. Now, once you're here, you can then move this around and see how things go. So if we go back here to the beginning, we see what the problem is here. This area is kind of confused. But now we can go to the next model is here. But notice those isobars are not there. So what you have to do is come in here. This is just the subtlety I want to do. You have to turn it off, and then turn it on. Then it will bring in the isobars for that model right here, the second one, and so forth. And so that's the way that works. So you have to just keep in mind you can only show isobars for one model at a time, and when you switch models you have to go in, shut it off, and turn it back on. And then, but once you have it on, you can indeed just step through here and watch how the isobars are moving for that model and help evaluate that. And then I will put that model, come back, and then go and please look at that article, which has a lot of reference links and other details that I haven't covered here. I just wanted to show mechanically how these parts move.